Hello and welcome, everyone. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy. We're on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, very glad that you could join us today, and I'm very happy to be here as well. Our episodes are live and always on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the importance of goal setting, why we need goals, SMART goals. SMART is an acronym. Also going to give you some tips and tricks to develop a strategy. We also are looking for your thoughts on this show, so we'll be really glad to take your phone calls later in the show. Our studio number is 866-451-1451. So that's 866-451-1451. That's for later in the show. Also, if you send us an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com, that's talk@johnmhawkins.com, you'll be automatically entered into our weekly giveaway where we're giving away a copy of your choice of one of my books, either Coach to Greatness, or you can also choose from one of the other two. Building a Strategic Plan might be a good option. And then we're also giving away a $25 Visa gift card along with that. Well, truly glad to be here with you guys today. Saturday is a great day to reflect. It's the day of the week that I pick, or I choose, to really start to focus my energies on strategy. There's always, strategy that we need throughout the day, throughout our lives to keep us going. And this is the day for me to assess my strategy. And I would hope that you would choose this day as well. Our show is growing. We're now available on iHeart, iTunes, Player FM, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and you'll also be able to find the live stream version of us on YouTube and soon to be other places as well. You can also find past episodes there, so if there's an episode you'd like to listen to, all of them are available on those platforms. You can find me personally at Hawkins John on Twitter, so on Twitter at Hawkins John, or you can go to my website at johnmhawkins.com. And just like anything in life, we need to have a strategy and a plan to help us reach our goals, because the best laid plans don't always work. Well, today we're talking about goal setting, and I think this is an extremely appropriate topic, given that we are new into 2019, and last week we were talking about New Year's resolutions. And I wanted to talk a little bit about goal setting, because goal settings go beyond just setting the resolutions, as we talked about last week. But really, we want to start to determine how are we going to be going about accomplishing these goals, or in last week's instance, resolutions. So in today's show, we're going to be talking about 7 reasons why we should set goals. We're going to talk about, taking control of our objectives, the results, the focus for us. We're also going to talk about why we need to set goals. Talk about some successful people who are goal setters. But also, I want to explain to you some exciting research in regard to the neuroscience behind why goal setting and specifically writing down your goals work. So you're not going to want to miss that. We're then going to go into a couple of, actually one framework in particular, and it is an acronym called SMART, S-M-A-R-T. I've written about this in the past and in a couple of my books, and also have some blog articles on it. But today I want to take a deeper dive into it. I want to dive into the SMART goals acronym, talk a little bit about that. There is some confusion around that topic, so I want to clear that up. We're then going to go talk a little bit about some SMART goal examples that I found online. We're going to critique those. We're going to put together a strategy. And then finally, we're going to put all of this in place. And by the end of the show, you are going to have a goal-setting strategy that you can use. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about 7 important reasons why you should set goals. And this information that I'm gleaming from here is from an article that was written for Personal Excellence magazine. The author is Celestine Chua. And so it says here, she's got a couple of good quotes here. The first one is, the trouble with not having a goal is that you can spend your life running up and down the field and never score, according to Bill Copeland. Another quote from Zig Ziglar, you need a plan to build a house. To build a life, it is even more important to have a plan or a goal. Author goes on to talk about, where do you see yourself in 1, 3, 5, 10 years? What are your life aspirations? Well, the aspirations, from my perspective, is the vision of what it is we hope to accomplish, where we see ourselves. The goal setting portion, which is what we're focusing on today, are the steps that you need to take to start to accomplish the goals that lead up to that vision. Author talks about some salient points. Number one, take control of your life. If you set goals, you have the ability to take control of your life rather than sleepwalking through it. Number two, maximize your results. Top performers, world-class athletes, and successful people all set goals. Michael Phelps, Kobe Bryant, Mark Zuckerberg, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, many others set their goals, and they've helped to maximize their results. Create laser focus. Goals give you focus, while a life purpose gives you a general direction. Your goals give you laser focus as to what exactly to spend your time and energy on. Creates accountability. Having goals makes you accountable. I don't know if it makes you accountable, but it does definitely help you become more accountable. Rather than just talk, you are now able to act on those. It's a form of motivation, something that can help motivate you. When you set goals, you connect yourself with your innermost desires. They help motivate you and give you something to strive for. Yes, if you write down your goals and have something to look forward to, it is something that could motivate you. Be the best you can be. Goals help you achieve your highest potential. Without goals, you default to the routine activities that keep you feeling safe and comfy every day. Live your best life. So those are some of the reasons here that Celestine suggests that we should be setting goals. But I think there's, more to it than just that. It also comes down to being able to have a sense of accomplishment, being able to have meaning in life, having a purpose beyond just what we are doing for others. How many times do you think in your mind in the first week of the new year, boy, I wish I had accomplished this, or if only 10 years ago I had done that. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The best time after that is now. So that's part of why we're talking about goals today. It's okay that you haven't been focusing on your goals, that you haven't been accomplishing them, because we all have the ability to start over. Goal setting is not something that is one and done. It is an art, it is a skill, it is something that needs to be practiced. It is something that you will continue to need coaching on. I continue to need coaching on goal setting. But over time, the better you get at it and the more you practice it, the more accomplished you will feel. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about why we need to set these goals. I'm going to go into the neuroscience behind it. You're not going to want to miss this. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today. Glad you could join us. Today we're talking about goal setting. Right before the break, we were talking about some of the reasons why you should set goals and also discuss some of the benefits. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit more in depth on why goal setting works. We're going to get to the neuroscience of it. But also, I want to give you some interesting statistics as to, the benefits and how productive people are when they start to set goals. So I've got an article here from Christina Desmarais. It is called "The Real Reason People Who Set Goals Are More Successful." I picked this article because it has lots of good statistics in it. There's also a good infographic that has some information that I'd like to share with you. She says, goals are a big time of this year. Whether you believe in New Year's resolutions or not, she says, research shows that people who create goals for themselves are more successful. In fact, according to goal management solution provider Workboard, people lose 30% of their capacity and performance by not focusing on their goals. Targets are critical when it comes to companies achieving more, and teams which are engaged in reaching goals see a 28% higher same-year operating margin. Yet a mere 7% of employees who understand what they actually need to do to help the organization reach its goals. Well, that's interesting. When the targets are specific and we know what they are, and everybody knows what they are doing, you have a much higher percentage of performance for those organizations. Now, I'm talking specifically here about organizations, but apply this not only to the organizations, the large organizations, but apply this down to small businesses, to your life, to teams. Whatever group you have where there are people orchestrating together, this does apply. She mentioned in there that there was a Workboard infographic, and I want to give you some information from that. It says here, why goals matter. A simple truth. Your team cannot achieve a goal it doesn't know about. Pretty good point. People who set goals are more successful. 69% of high-performing companies rank communicating business goals company-wide as the most effective and important way to build a high-performing team. High-achieving organizations are 21% more productive than their counterparts. You waste 30% of your capacity and performance potential when you don't focus on your goal. Goals are essential to engaging teams in achieving and retaining talent. Engaged teams return 28% higher same-year operating margins, which they've identified as a pretty big deal, and I think it is too. And 3 times higher than companies that failed to engage their employees in achievement. So if you think about that, these are organizations. They're successful organizations. They're competing. They're out there growing. They're doing business. So by default, you could look at them and say, well, great, those are successful businesses. Yet there are still those that are more successful than others. Well, if you take a look at the numbers and see how some of these organizations are able to perform at a much higher level, what if you could transform that performance at the company level to your own life, to your team, to your family dynamic? You now would have the ability, by setting and using these simple goal techniques, to be able to become a top performer in your own group, in your own community, in your own charitable organization. And that's the power of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to understand what it is that these large organizations are doing and trying to apply that not only back to business so we can support those efforts of the organizations that we work for, but also to be able to take these skills and use them in our own daily lives. There's a win-win there. Organization, companies, businesses win. We win because we now have the ability to learn how they do this. These are tactics. These are techniques. These are things that take time to evolve. And so that's part of why we want to study this. And personal development is about growth. It's about John Hawkins not just being the John Hawkins of last year, But John Hawkins needs to develop so that he is even better next year. And not only next year, but it should go on a, this week, how did I do? Next week, I did a little bit better. The following week, I took a couple steps back, but, by the fourth week, I went forward. That's what we're trying to do here. Why goals and teams fails, and back to this infographic here. Companies fail to achieve strategic change goals 70% of the time, often because people aren't committed and engaged in the achievement. Well, if people don't know what goal setting is about and they don't know how to do it, and somebody puts together a goal and top down sends it to you, how are you ever going to go about accomplishing it? It's no wonder that number is so high. 70% now makes sense to me because we don't teach people the fundamentals of goal setting. Goals don't inspire achievement. 87% of employees not actively engaged in achievement. They're irrelevant to people. 93% can't translate a goal to their actions. How true is that? In an organization, someone's sitting at their desk. They know they have certain things to do. They've been given a prioritized list. They have all these things that they should be focusing on. But which one of those items on that list is going to provide the most benefit to the organization? Which one of those aligns to the goal? Now, I can tell you that if you have a list of 10 things, the priority of that list may change on a daily basis, depending on the overall vision, how we're going about accomplishing and executing on those goals. Well, if that information doesn't make it down into the trenches where people have their list of 10 goals they're working on, or they're not getting feedback on how these goals are impacting the performance, how do you as an individual in an organization make any changes? On the flip side, if you're taking these practices, and using them in your community, using them in your nonprofit, using them in that respect, now you can see the importance, if you are a leader, of communicating these to other groups and making sure that they know what we're trying to do here. So it's very important not only to understand how important this is for the top level, but also for those who are implementing it. Quickly, I want to get to an article here that talks about the neuroscience behind it, and one of the things that I absolutely think you need to do. Very important for you to write down your goals. It actually talks here in this article about vividly describing your goals in written form is strongly associated with goal setting. And there's a lot of science behind it. I don't have all the time to get into it, but there's a great article by Mark Murphy that talks about why we need to write down our goals. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about SMART goals. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. You're listening to My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. Very happy to be here with you today. Would love to get your thoughts. Glad to take your phone calls later in the show. Our studio number is 866-451-1451. That's 866-451-1451. Please also feel free to send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. If you do send an email to us, you'll be automatically entered to win a copy of my latest book, Coach to Greatness, or we could also give you Building a Strategic Plan for Your Life and Business, since that aligns with goal setting. And we're also going to throw in a $25 Visa gift card. Well, right before the break, we briefly talked about the neuroscience behind why you need to write down and achieve your goals. It was an article that I briefly mentioned was written by Mark Murphy. I wanted to touch on this briefly before I get to SMART goals, because I feel that it is so important for us to not only be told and hear what is important, but also understand why this is important. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this now. He says here that in one of his studies called The Gender Gap in Goal Setting, he found that both men and women need to do a much better job of writing down their goals. Although men did perform a bit better than women on the issue, study participants were asked to rate the question. My goal is so vividly described in written form, including pictures, photos, drawings, etc., that I could literally show it to other people, and they would know exactly what I am trying to achieve. He says, sadly, fewer than 20% of people said that their goals were always written down this vividly. So this is a nuance. Writing down your goals, having a list of 10 different things that you need to accomplish on a daily basis is one thing. What he's suggesting here is that you need to vividly write down those goals. Put some dimension to it. We're going to go into the SMART acronym and talk a little bit about that, but I think this is an absolutely crucial point for you if you are a goal setter, if you are somebody who wants to be able to achieve your goals. It's not just writing down a goal, and we'll give some examples later, but it's vivid detail. Here he says you could show it to somebody else and they would know exactly what you are trying to achieve. Well, to me, this vivid detail is a blueprint. It is something that you could hand over to a builder, and that builder then could build the house. If you just told a builder, I want to build a house, you have no idea what kind of house you're going to get. But if you gave them a blueprint that had 3 floors, and it had 5 bedrooms, and it had an office and a den, now they have something to work with. So as you're writing down your goals, I think it's incredibly important to think about how vivid your descriptions are. He also goes down in this article and talks a little bit about the neuroscience behind it. We're not going to have a ton of time to cover this, but they've identified what's called the generation effect, which basically says individuals demonstrate better memory for material they've generated themselves than for material they've merely read. It's nice. It's a nice edge to have. And when you write down your goals, you want to access the generational effect twice first. When you generate the goal, create the picture in your mind. Second, when you write it down, because you're essentially reproducing or regenerating this image, you're going to have to think about that mental picture. Put it on paper, place objects, scale them, think about their spatial relations, draw facial expressions, etc. He suggests that there's a lot of cognitive processing taking place right here. In essence, you get a double whammy that really sears the goal into your brain. So those are some tips there from Mark Murphy, and I personally think they're brilliant and will probably implement those in the coming week. I do want to get to SMART goals. SMART goals is an acronym. It's actually something that can be used to help you set your goals. It's a criteria that are commonly attributed to Peter Drucker in Management by Objectives concept. And the first known use of the term occurred in November of 1981. So SMART is an acronym, and it can stand for a few things. So I want to clear up some of the confusion here. So it's SMART, S-M-A-R-T. So SMART stands for, or the S in SMART stands for specific. There are also attributions showing it as simple, sensible, or significant. But for all our intent and purpose, it is specific. The second one is measurable. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through all 5 of these letters. We're going to talk about them, and then in the next segment, we're going to go through some examples. So you'll have a little bit of time to hopefully understand exactly how to use it. So the next one is measurable, meaningful, and motivating. So measurable, meaningful, or motivating as well. Achievable, agreed, attainable. Relevant, reasonable, realistic, resourced, results-based. And finally, T is time-bound, time-based, time-limited, time cost-limited, timely, time-sensitive. Now, as you know, somebody comes up with a framework, and that framework never is good enough. So that's why we have those additional words used to describe what the S, M, A, R, and T stand for. I probably should have been telling you that I am getting this information from the Mind Tools content team. They have a lot of great content out there, and that is where I'm getting this information from. So specific. Specific is, what do I want to accomplish? Why is this goal important? Who is involved? Where is it located? Which resources or limits are involved? Back to Mark, if you add back to Mark's thoughts on that, if you were to add this dimension to it and had answered all those questions when you're writing out your goals, it does seem to me like you are getting enough information to have a very vivid description of what you want to do. Measurable. How much? How many? How will I know when it is accomplished? Achievable. How can I accomplish this goal? How realistic is this goal? Based on other constraints, such as other factors. Relevant. This step is about ensuring your goal matters to you. A relevant goal can answer yes to these questions. Does it seem worthwhile? Is this the right time for me? Time-bound. We have to have time limits set. When? What can I do in 6 months from now? What can I do in 6 weeks from now? Now, there are benefits and drawbacks to every framework, and in this case, the acronym that I'm referring to of SMART. So as you do start to use this tool, realize that it could get you to a point where you are into analysis paralysis. But if you are aware of that, you should be able to pull yourself out. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about some SMART goal examples. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy. We're on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today. Really glad that you could join us. If you're just joining the show today, we're talking about goal setting. Last week, we talked about New Year's resolutions, and those to me are the vision. It's what you're out to accomplish aspirationally. This episode, I thought we'd go into detail on how to really go about setting your goals properly so that you have a much better chance of achieving them. Right before the break, we were talking a little bit about the neuroscience behind why writing down your goals works, which to me is absolutely fascinating and something that I'm going to do a better job this year of applying to my own goal setting. The other thing we went through was the acronym SMART. And we talked a little bit about what that acronym means and also went through that framework. So in this segment, I wanted to talk a little bit more about some examples because I think it's very important for us to, really get a good understanding of what we're talking about here. So I have an article by Alyssa Gregory, and Alyssa Gregory went out and wrote an article on SMART goal setting. And she wrote some examples here of what a broad goal would be and a SMART goal would be. So we're going to critique them, and we're going to see exactly, I won't give her a grade on these because some of these are subjective, but I do think it'll give you a good understanding and appreciation for, what it takes to create a SMART goal. Now, the goals that she has here that are SMART goals, it's a blog article, so we're not going to expect all the important detailed that Mark suggested we use, that Mark Murphy suggested we use to help us keep on top of our goals, but these are good from an example perspective. First goal, she said, it's a broad goal, is I want to start a business. Okay, that's the goal. The SMART goal, she suggests, would be within a month, I am going to get set up to sell handmade cards on Etsy, which will allow me to benefit financially from my favorite hobby. Within 6 weeks, I will have an inventory of 30 handmade cards to sell and aim to sell a minimum of 5 cards per week, building relationships through word of mouth, referrals, and local networking. So as you can see here, she's done a good job of being time-bound. She's given herself 2 objectives as I see them. The first timeline is within the month. She has goals that she wants to achieve. Time-bound within the month, this is what's going to happen. And then she's also given herself another milestone. She's given herself the 6-week milestone where she's going to have an inventory of 30 cards to sell. And she's planning on selling a minimum of 5 cards per week. So I think that, going from the broad goal of wanting to start a business to the SMART goal, where she gets into the detail on what she wants to sell, is really a big improvement from the broad goal that she had set before. I guess from a criticism perspective, we could look at this and say, well, why is she doing this? And she did say that she wants to financially benefit from her favorite hobby. I guess looking at this further, what else could she have done differently? Relevant, is this the best opportunity for her to be investing in? Or are there other opportunities that might afford her the ability to benefit her favorite hobby in other ways? So just looking at that briefly, that's, kind of what I can think about. I do think it's achievable. As I'm going back to my list here, we can measure it, and it is fairly specific. So that's one of her examples. The second example she has here is she wants to grow her business. So now that she's started her business and she's gotten through the first month, the first 6 weeks, she wants to grow it. Well, that was the goal. And she's now talking about a different business. This is a consulting business. So a SMART goal for that would be, I will acquire 3 new clients for my consulting business within 2 months by asking for referrals, launching a social media marketing campaign, and networking with local businesses. This will allow me to grow my business and increase my revenue. So that is the SMART goal. Now, if I were to take a look at that and say, what could she have added? Well, I would look at this and say, by how much do we need to increase the revenue by? She says she wants to grow the business and increase the revenue, but why do we need to grow the business? How much revenue does she need to add? Is it top line revenue? I mean, as you can see, you could really get into the nitty-gritty detail of all these goals, which at some point could be extremely counterproductive. But I do think it's important that as you go through these and create your own SMART goals, having somebody take a look at the goal and providing a critique or constructive criticism can help you think through it to make sure that, yes, these are the goals that you want. And yes, this is the best path to do it. Also, alignment to what we are trying to accomplish. You know, I don't know why she has this consulting business or whoever has this consulting business and why that's, but is that the best way to gain the revenues? Do they need to diversify? Are there alliances? Are there other things she could be doing rather than just focusing on the social marketing media campaign? So, I also am thinking about demand generation and other things she could be thinking about. But that's just my brain as I look at this and hyper-analyze these goals. I think fundamentally going from the broad goal, which she had stated prior, which is I want to grow my business, to I want, to the SMART goal is a wonderful improvement. And, the thing you would do here is really just to help her make sure that she's thought through all these options. Another goal she has here is the broad goal of she wants to write a business book. And so her broad goal is she wants to write a business book. The SMART goal is, in order to establish myself as an expert, I will write a 150-page book on social media by writing one chapter per month or 3 to 5 pages per week. This book will be completed in 10 months, and then I will search for a publisher or explore self-publishing. So that's her SMART goal that she's defined. I can tell you that it does have more dimension. It has a lot of information in there that you need. I am somebody who's written 3 books, and I can tell you that there are some things I would focus on first. For example, the marketing and the getting that all done ahead of time is probably more important. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. When we come back, we're going to talk about creating your strategy. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. Good to be here. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Well, I am really happy to be here with you today and really glad that you could join us This is our live show. It's on Saturdays at 10 a.m., 1 p.m. Pacific. Today we've been talking about goal setting, and I would love to get your thoughts. You can still enter for this week's drawing to get a copy of one of my latest books. You get a pick and a $25 Visa gift card, but you do have to send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. Well, right before the break, we were talking about some SMART goal examples and went into detail on some examples from a blog article that someone had written. We kind of critiqued them and analyzed them to see how her SMART goals measured up. So right as we talked about that, we were talking about the fact that you can overanalyze them, and like any framework that's out there, it is a way to help you organize information, but if you get too focused on the framework itself, you do lose sight of the goal. So from that perspective, we want to start now talking a little bit about our strategy and how we need to take all the information that we've learned and come up with a systematic approach to help bring all this together. So from a systematic approach perspective, I like to think about this in 5 different areas. It's the the awareness aspect of it, the assess and analyze, strategize and plan, implement and support and evaluate. So from a strategy perspective, strategies, for all intent and purpose, are really the course of actions. It's what are the things we need to be doing to be successful. So if we're thinking about the course of actions that we want to take in regard to setting our goals, we really want to start thinking about what is your vision? What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? And once you've got that, and by now you would hopefully have really got a clear awareness of who you are and what you want to achieve, what you're trying to do. But then if there's something that's not working, let's say, for example, we have these goals that we've been setting, and we've set these goals every December 31st for the past 10 years, and maybe it's just one goal we've set, and we've not been able to accomplish that goal, there's a real problem. There is a problem because you have committed to yourself to set the goal, or maybe you didn't commit, but you've opined or wanted to have a goal accomplished, and you haven't been able to do it in the past 10 years. So then we would need to say, well, why are you not able to do that? We need to assess the situation. What isn't working? Are you not being held accountable? Is your plan, does it not comply with the SMART acronym? Is it not specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, timely? What is it about those goals that you've identified that you were trying to accomplish that you weren't able to do? Because I can tell you, if it was me and I had set a goal that I was not able to accomplish, and I set that goal every year for 10 years, it would really motivate me to find a way to accomplish that goal. Now, there are some goals that I haven't accomplished, and they're lifelong goals, and I know those are going to take my entire life to accomplish. But if it's one of those simpler goals or something that we need to do, whether it's with work or personal or whatever, right, financial, we really want to dig deeper. So once we've done that, we need to strategize and plan. Last year, think back, last year, and this is part of the analysis, but last year when I set this goal, what did I do? Where was I when I set this goal? Did I set this goal on December 31st? Did I set it the month before? When did I set this goal? If I put a plan in place, what were those objectives that I tried to accomplish? If we go back to the goal example that was mentioned where she wanted to set up an Etsy store, she had said in the first month, I want to accomplish this, and within 6 weeks, I want to do this. So those are measurable. So if you put together a measurable goal, you should be able to go back and look at that goal and say, oh, hey, it was February. I'd intended to do this, this, and this. I ended up getting distracted because my cousin was getting married, and he asked me to go, away on a weekend trip with him to talk about it, and I came back and I never did it. Okay, now we know why you didn't accomplish your goal. But it's very important for us to understand why we didn't accomplish the goal. Or maybe it's something that, you get into January and you're thinking about this goal and, oh, I really want to do it. and it's something I need to do. But then you finally realize, gosh, this is something my mom and dad wanted me to do, and I really don't want to do this. Well, now, you've wasted time in December setting a goal, a resolution, something you wanted to accomplish. And by setting something that somebody else wanted you to do, you've wasted precious time that you could have used to set goals that are relevant to you, that are important to who you are, that are going to get you where you want to be. So from that perspective, when we have a strategy and a plan in place, we can now start to measure against that plan. Now, it's not going to do much if we plan and don't implement, so we're going to need to implement the plan. We need to think about implementing change, and change is not easy. Change is tough. Some change can be easy, I suppose, but other change is hard, and getting out of those habits that we are in can be difficult. And once you've implemented the plan, it's important to hold yourself accountable. We've talked in the past about finding buddies who can help you get through it. Or if you're somebody who, doesn't have the resources to do something, share the wealth, right? Find an investor, find somebody who can help you with that resource. And then, you could have a win-win where you get your business if you're looking to do a business or looking to do something, and that person who invested in you has an opportunity to get great returns. So there's always ways that we can do things. And when I'm talking about this from a personal development perspective, investments aren't just about financial investments. They're time, talent, or treasure. There's the time, the investment. If you have a plan and want to grow yourself, but you're not investing the time you need, that's just as bad as not having enough monies to invest in the opportunity. So, all of these things work together. And an investment in a resource isn't necessarily a financial. You might not have the talent it takes, and you've been trying to do something that you've wanted to do, but maybe it's time to admit that you aren't as talented. And if you're not talented, does it make sense to set a goal to accomplish when physiologically your body can't do that? And these are all part of the tough decisions we have to make when we have a vision and a goal, but then the ugly reality sets in and hampers us. So it's really important, as you implement your strategy and create it, to be cognizant and aware of what it is you're doing, what type of practice you are doing. Are you talented? Do you have the proper resources to make this dream a reality? And in using a systematic approach, it will give you a better chance of being successful. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. When we come back, we're going to talk about putting your plan in place. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to have you with us here today. Quick reminder that you do need to get your submissions in to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com to qualify for the book and Visa gift card giveaway. In case you missed this broadcast, you can listen on iHeartRadio, Apple iTunes, or one of your other favorite digital platforms. We also now are available in video on YouTube and soon to be others. Again, if you want to send us an email, be part of the show, send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com, or you can give us a call at 1-844-MY-STRATEGY. Well, this week we've been talking about specifically goal setting. We've covered a lot of topics today, and I think from my perspective, this is, really one of those exciting episodes for me because we're talking about something that I truly love and I like doing. We talked about the 7 reasons why we should set goals. We talked about it helps us to take control of situations. It helps us get the results we're after. It helps us to have laser focus. We also talked about why we need to set the goals. We talked and listened to a number of people who are successful and have been able to accomplish their goals. Now, there's no coincidence that these uber successful people all say the reason they're able to accomplish their goals is because they write them down. You can't argue with that. That has had an impact on their lives, and they wouldn't talk about it unless it truly did have an impact. So I think it's incredibly important to write down your goals. But I do want to caveat that with something that we learned from an article written by Mark Murphy, where he went into neuroscience and explained why writing down goals actually worked. And I think, to me, that was really one of the eye-openers for this show, is starting to tune into ways to develop and create and generate ideas. And as you're generating them and writing them down, they are getting seared into your brain better than if you were to read a book on goal setting. And to me, that really opened up my mind as to how these uber successful folks are accomplishing their goals. And now I really would love to get one of their journals. What do they put in their journals? What are they writing down? Are they writing down things that are extremely descriptive and detailed to a point where if I were a builder, I could hand a blueprint over to somebody and they would be able to build it? If that's the detail that they're doing, and I'm just somebody who is writing down goals, broad goals, there is no way that you can accomplish all that they have accomplished, because you're not, while you are doing what they said, which is write down goals, you're not doing it to the level to which they are doing it. So that's something I need to find out more about. We also talked about SMART goals and the SMART acronym, which is a framework attributed to Peter Drucker in 1981. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Now, we did learn that specific can refer to other things, so can measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. But for our intent and purpose, we are using them as I had stated. And from that perspective, I think it's also important to know that while this is a framework and it can help you with your goal setting, you can also get overwhelmed by the framework itself. So we also want to realize that this is a framework that we're using, and it's a tool. We want to focus on the outcome, not just using the tool. And we learned that best by going through some of those SMART goal examples. And as we went through those examples, it was easy for me to be hypercritical about some of them, but I don't think I was being hypercritical. I think I was providing critique and I was providing input. And if I were sitting down with the author of those SMART goals, we would have a discussion and I would provide my input, and either it helps or it doesn't. But when we start to share our goals and we start to, evangelize and talk about them, it makes it real for us. And, in having those conversations, writing down the goals, rewriting down the goals, we do stand a much better chance of accomplishing them. Well, it's been a pleasure to be here with you today. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. You've been listening to My Strategy. We're on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We'll see you next time.